All right, this is the Evan Ginzburg Show at VillageConnectionRadio.com. Jim Savalio, engineer and station owner at the helm. And today I get to do like Don Kirshner, Don Cornelius, Dick Clark, all the D's. We're going to have basically a concert today. We have 3 musical acts later in the show. We have Lisa Polizzi. We have jazz great Karsten Ratke all the way from Germany. But right now we have, welcome to our show, the Meadow Hawks. Let's hit it, guys.
Yeah.
All right.
This one's called Get It Out.
Woo!
3, 4.
Shove it out, get it out, push it out.
Shove it out, get it out, push it out. Shove it out, get it out, push it, shove it, push it, come on, get it out.
Only got one life to live. To live right to the end. Only got one chance, so gotta need what we want more. We're on the dreams. What's gonna be fun? I wonder if it'll turn to hate. Or will it turn to love? Now you gotta push it out. It's never enough, and you gotta hang tough. You gotta push it out.
Shove it out, get it out, push it out. Shove it out, get it out, push it out. Shove it out, get it out, push it, shove it, push it, come on, get it out.
Success ain't no guarantee. Just gotta believe. And if you don't follow this creed, failure's all you'll ever achieve. Now I can show you, find the key to the door. Let love speak for you. You won't need anymore. Let me push it out.
Shove it out, get it out, push it out. Shove it out, get it out, push it out. Shove it out, get it out, push it out. Shove it out, get it out, push it out. Shove it out, get it out, push it out. Shove it out, get it out, push it out. Shove it out, get it out.
Let me see you push it out. Let me see you shove it out. But once you get it out, come on, push it, shove it, push it. Come on, get it out. Woo! Ladies and gentlemen, we got one more song for you. This one's called I'm Done. Sing this one for your ex. Kicking down the door, got my feet on the floor. I'm just what I'm doing, starting my movement, and I'm taking the fall. I'm breaking the line, like breaking no love. Just pushing and pulling, it's my solution. I'm gonna take it equal, 'cause I'm done. Give you my heart, done, baby. Chasing after the car.
Metal Hawks, welcome to our show, and we'll be right back with the Evan Ginzburg Show after this very brief timeout. We gotta set you up.
Not to shake it off, another night to make it all feel so exciting. A hot kiss could start a fire. Baby, this can make you high, and I'll mess when it's inside. It's so inviting. Over and over, I want you again. I want to be closer tonight. Change it all. Where we lie is where we fall. One more brick to make a wall. So much for finding out. Another night for you to cry. Another night to say goodbye. One more night is one more lie. It's so defining. Over and over, I want you again. I want to be closer.
All right, we are back with the Evan Ginzburg Show with the Metal Hawks. Do you prefer the Metal Hawks or just Metal Hawks?
Metal Hawks.
Just metal. You don't like the the?
No.
Okay, so we'll avoid the the.
I always say, like, you don't say the Guns N' Roses.
Okay, there you go. There you go. I stand corrected. And introduce yourself, guys.
I'm Ryan Diverse. I'm the lead singer.
Okay.
I'm Alex Earler, and I play drums and backup vocals.
I'm John Barry, and I play guitar.
And you're the bodyguard, right? You serve two purposes. Okay. And how old are you guys?
I'm 18.
Okay.
17.
15.
All right, all right. And are you related at all, or just friends, just
Yeah,
buddies?
just friends.
Back in the old days, kids would play in the garage and master their craft and just gig relentlessly and practice relentlessly. What's your methods? Because you guys are good.
You mean methods like, you know...
How do you get this good this young?
It's just a lot of practice, man. It's the same with anybody, no matter how old you are. It's just practice, man, and just perfecting your craft.
Okay. And Sonny Rollins, who's the world's greatest living jazz saxophonist, he was still practicing 2 hours a day in his 80s. And he had nothing to prove. So, you can't just get ready. You can't just get.
Prove that 8 years old, he's still at it.
That's right. And you can't just get ready for American Idol. You have to practice every day and master your craft. Who are some of the musicians that have influenced you?
Oh, so many. There's a whole list. I like a lot of stuff, like everything between like Led Zeppelin to like Pantera, basically. And I just kind of like combine everything and just kind of make it my own.
I heard a little Rolling Stones influence in what you did before.
Yeah, somewhat.
And some blues influences.
Yeah, definitely.
You guys like blues?
I mean, blues is like the root of basically all genres of music.
Absolutely.
Now they're popular.
Absolutely. So, who are some of your musical influences? Who are some of the people that you've listened to?
I mean, for me,
Or you guys?
yeah. I mean, I've said my piece. Like,
Well,
what do you
I'm really,
Is that you?
yeah.
I'm really into Foo Fighters, like Taylor Hawkins.
Okay.
He's like one of my favorites. Travis Barker, Blink-182. Yeah, he's awesome. I mean, it's like always like grew up with them. It's always really cool, you know.
Okay.
Yeah. Rush
And
is another big guy for me.
For me, it's probably Van Halen.
Van
Because Eddie
Halen.
Van Halen with the two-hand tapping and stuff. I love
Okay.
that.
Okay, so for your homework, I want you to check out Bootsy Collins, who played with James Brown and Parliament Funkadelic. And if you don't know Parliament Funkadelic, you should be listening to them too. That's a mix of R&B, funk, and rock. I mean, amazing music, amazing music. So, what do you guys have coming up?
Well, we have a couple of things coming up. We have a show September 1st at the Bitter End in New York City. New York City folks, please come down to the Bitter End Greenwich Village.
Bitter End's a legendary venue.
Oh,
On a
yeah.
Saturday night at 9:00.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Perfect.
And then what else we got?
On September 8th, we are playing with Unchained.
It's completely
Yeah.
unchanged.
Completely Unchained.
Yeah, it's at Tanner Park. I'm pretty sure, right?
Mhm.
Yeah. And we're also doing a Buddy Holly tribute band with Andrew Anthony. So we're just playing 3 songs. Rave On. That'll be the day. And
Wow.
What's the other one?
Ready Teddy's
Ready
the
to
other
yeah,
one.
that's right.
Buddy Holly's been gone 50 years. I'm impressed you even know
60
him.
years.
60 years. Wow. Your math is better than mine. That's why I used to be an English teacher, not a math teacher. Amazing, amazing. So you guys listen to Buddy Holly. Who else you
Not
listen?
really.
Who else you listen to from the old school and from the 50s and 60s?
Old school? I'm old school, but not like that old school person.
Nothing more old school than Buddy Holly. Yeah.
Not really.
I haven't heard of Buddy Holly since I had to play for him. So I mean,
Yeah.
Maybe Sinatra on a good day. I don't know.
All right, all right. So, what have been some career highlights? You guys are still young. What have been some of your best gigs, best moments?
Oh, man. I would say one of our best moments was we did a Battle of the Bands in Queens about a year ago. It was a huge crowd that was there, and we ended up winning that one.
And where was that?
It was Queens Library, like the Golden Auditorium, whatever that is. It's Queens Community College.
Okay. Wow. All right.
So that was definitely a high for me, I'd say.
There you go. Playing in a beautiful venue, Colden
it was
Colden
awesome.
Auditorium, Queens College, right?
Yeah, it's an
Yeah,
awesome
yeah.
stage.
Yeah, they get Gladys Knight and Cyndi Lauper. That's a world class venue.
Wow.
So that's impressive that you guys were there.
Yeah, thank you.
And what have been some low points? Any bad gigs, bad sound, bad?
Low points. I mean, not really with us, but I mean, like, I know, like, at some places, like, the better the sound is, the better the gig is.
Oh, yeah.
We've had places where the sound is kind of, like, really on the low end, and that kind of ruins the gigs for us. Like, I'll be totally shocked because I was trying to hear myself, like, throughout the whole gig, and, like, and I just, like, couldn't, and I had to, like, just scream at the top of my lungs just to be heard, you know?
Yeah.
I mean, those kind of nights, they just really suck.
Yeah, bad sound. I've been to Madison Square Garden where the sound was horrific. Top dollar, world class acts, and bad sound will kill a show. So
Those sound guys were probably fired.
get yourselves a good sound man. And I want everybody to look right behind you at this picture. Can you get a picture of that, Jim? The painting. This is everything we want you to avoid: groupies, psychedelics. We want you to practice and master your craft. So, what do you think, Jim?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah,
There you
yeah.
go.
So, give out any social media so people can stay in touch
Yeah,
with
social
you.
media. We're on Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube. Instagram is Metal Hawks Band. Facebook, Metal Hawks, and YouTube, Metal Hawks. Give us a like, subscribe, follow. whatever you gotta do. Keep yourself updated on shows, new songs, whatever, man. Just keeping you in the loop. In the loop.
And now I'm going to ask you the tough questions. You have an entourage of a whole bunch of family members who are smiling proudly. What's the line? What's the line where it's too much parental involvement?
It's too
Right
much,
now,
right?
right now.
Yeah, right now.
No, seriously. Your parents.
I'm 18. I've had enough of this.
Yeah, your parents are very
Yeah.
supportive, and
We really do appreciate their support, and it helps a lot when your family is very supportive, and they just help, and they just boost your confidence, you know.
And is there a line where mom, dad step back a little, or
Well, when we practice, they step back.
okay,
I'd say,
okay,
but we try not to let it be like too much, because honestly, like, if it's too much of a parent-run band, it's really just a parent band and parents living through their kids, and and the other thing too is, like, if kids just go out on their own and they play stuff, that's really their thing. And if they're super interested in that, that's great. It's great that parents are involved with this kind of stuff, but I don't think they have to necessarily live through their children.
live vicariously is the word you're looking for.
Vicariously, yeah.
Interesting.
I didn't know it was what it meant.
You don't want a stage mom or whatever. But what I was hearing in the green room was all very positive.
Oh,
I
yeah.
want my kids to go to college, get an education.
Yeah.
There's no guarantees
I'm
in the
going to
music
Stony Brook in a
industry.
week.
There you go.
I'm gonna be living with my uncle there, so I don't have to pay for a dorm. Shout out to you, Uncle Joey, when you're watching this.
There you go. Much respect to Uncle Joey.
Yeah.
So now that the engineer has left the room, this interview is going to continue indefinitely because I can't just stop with the engineer gone. So you guys have a family function later?
Yeah.
Well, what's this
yes.
about?
I have my cousin's graduation.
Cousin's graduation. Okay. Mom.
This is when it crosses the line right here. You're trying to talk to me, and I have no clue what they're saying, you know?
Give a shout out to your cousin then.
Shout out to Jess for graduating college.
Wow. And any other shout outs, guys?
Jigga. Huh? Oh yeah, and I forgot to mention, those 3 songs they just did, they're gonna be in a movie soundtrack.
Oh yeah, that's important. Tell us about that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The movie's called
That minor detail.
Yeah, little minor detail. But the movie's called Killer Malevolence 3. It's directed by Stephen Mann. I know a friend of my dad's, and he asked one day, so do you want Metalhawks to submit your stuff? And like, oh yeah. And so he got all 3 of those songs out of the movie soundtrack. And I'm not gonna talk too much about it because it's not coming out till October 12th is the release date. So,
Well, that's fine. That's only 2 months
definitely
off.
stick around for that.
You want to know something? If you really understand the music business, today it's about getting your music onto soundtracks, commercials, MTV shows, cable shows, ringtones.
Yeah.
License your music.
That's what it's more about. Yeah, that's the thing that sucks. Because, like,
there's no money in the live gigs.
Yeah,
And
the scene today is different from when it was like 30 years ago. Because like nobody really goes out to shows anymore unless it's like family and stuff like that. So you kind of have to market yourself in other ways and try to be seen by big people in other ways, like
and merchandise.
Social media.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And merchandise yourself. Have the T-shirts, the CDs, the DVDs.
But that's just a minor thing. Number one important thing is product, and then you go out and promote it. That's
you have to have quality product.
Yeah, that's what's most important.
There you go. So, anything else you'd like to plug before we wrap things up?
I think it's about it. We missing anything here? Or?
No.
These guys are way too polished for 15 to 18, right? There you go. So, Metalhawks, thank you so much. And when you're selling out arenas, remember us and come back. Seriously.
Thank you.
There you go. So, Metalhawks, and later in the show, Lisa Polizzi, jazz great Karsten Ratke, all the way from Germany. He'll be performing live, as will Lisa, and other surprises. The Evan Ginzburg Show, the Eclectic Mix, and thank you to Jim Savelli for this forum. And that'll about do it. Metalhawks, thank you again. Appreciate it. Appreciate it. All right. There you go. Good job.
I stand.
Oh, my mind clears. Lord, I shed all of my tears. Oh, now maybe I was just waiting here while you moved on.
Security, this newfound freedom you kept from me. The sound of all your loaded guns. This outbreak war has just begun. The sound of all your loaded guns. This broken man has already won.
Oh, my mind clears. Lord, I shed all of my tears. Oh, now baby, I was just waiting here while you moved on. Breakdown. I'm sleeping with hope, but dreaming of let down. And you wanted to leave when it all starts to seem like your hope is all just words you speak. Words you speak, so you're not alone. I'm trying so hard. I'm trying to breathe on my own. Feel what it's like to be me without anyone. Leaving you only brings me pain. I played my role, I've shut my eyes to feel like a part of you. You keep me close just to keep me. Are you at home? I just wanna get out and leave you alone, but I don't wanna be left out.
right, we are back with the Evan Ginzburg Show at villageconnectionradio.com. And that was a lot of fun with Metal Hawks, and that's right, young kids, and we hope one day they're playing Madison Square Garden. And in just a few, we're going to have, all the way from Germany, the return of Carsten Radke. He's played with all the avant-garde jazz legends, and later in the show, Lisa Palizzi, and This Is What We Do, an eclectic mix as always. And just a quick couple of plugs. Metal Hawks will be at the Bitter End September 1st, 9 p.m., as they stated earlier. And the SWF wrestling promotion, our buddy Sir Christopher Michaels in the main event versus WWE Hall of Famer Tony Atlas, and that's at the Boonton Elks Lodge, 125 Cornelia Street in Boonton, New Jersey. The Boonton Elks Lodge, 125 Cornelia Street, Boonton, New Jersey. And you could call 201-539-3558, 201-539-3558 for information on that. And yesterday they had a benefit for a young 4-year-old child who tragically passed, and we want to commend the SWF for going that extra yard and supporting great charitable event. So without further ado, we have our friend Carsten Radke in studio, and whenever you're ready, here we go. Carsten. Austin Ratke. All right, and we'll take a very brief timeout, and we'll continue with the Evan Ginzburg Show in just a few, right here at VillageConnectionRadio.com. I like when you come out of the trance-like state.
Don't you know you'll always be my baby blue? And I'm so sorry, yeah, for what I put you through. It won't be long till I'm lying next to you. I'll always be there to give you a push on through. It's just me and you and Spider-Man, my baby blue. My baby blue. And does your mother tell you there'll always be days like this? Yeah. To her love, well, I guess it is. Yeah. It won't be long till I'm lying next to you. I'll always
buried by a landslide of everything and let slide. Burning up my hindsight, I divide the way. Choking on the next line, careful on the landmines. Turning up the inside, trying to light the way. It's not like I'm not living a life. I'm just living it like there's time to waste. If there's still time, I start living it right. I start living it like it's mine too. Looking at a gray sky, thinking about my lifetime, hearing all the right lines I've been trying to say, remembering the last time, wondering how to rewind.
All right, we are back with the Evan Ginzburg Show at villageconnectionradio.com. And Jim Savali, tell us about some of the independent artists we've been listening to during our little breaks.
Oh, well, if anyone doesn't know, we only play Long Island original music. So we heard some music from Craving Strange, the Shifleys, of course, Fresh Squeezed Lemonade.
Your
Can't miss
favorite.
that one. Little Dean James Silva, my buddy, with the Baby Blue, and all originals. Always looking for more of your local artists. Send us your originals.
And speaking of local artists, Jimmy Farrow's band's coming on my show in a few weeks.
Oh, really?
And what's that name again? Wisteria
Hall.
Wisteria Hall. Yeah, so they're going to be on the show coming up. And speaking of coming up, next week we have wrestling journalist Nick Commando. We have Jim's favorite, Mr. Big.
Mr. Big.
If you ever need to kill time on a radio show, this guy could talk for 7 hours, Mr. Big, right?
Yeah, he can.
And Sir Christopher Michaels will be back. And so we're going to lean towards pro wrestling next week. Also,
Right, so
media
we're mixing it up.
media expert Erica A. And the following Sunday will be a rare day off as it's Labor Day weekend. So no show September 2nd. But right now in studio, we have our friend all the way from Germany. That's a long. What train comes from Germany? The E, the F, the A.
Well, it's a submarine train.
Submarine train. Yeah, all the way from Germany. Karsten Ratke. And my question in the green room was, do you prefer Ratke or Ratka? Because
I'm fine with anything. You know, I think I told you the story. The first radio show I had in France, in Paris, it was a small radio station on Montmartre. It was called Radio Fréquence Montmartre. And I was a young student, and my teacher invited me to play. I was there for 2 weeks only. My French was not the best and stuff. But so the host, she called me, and I didn't know it was me because she called me Carter à queue.
yeah.
So
yeah.
since I'm used to that, you can call me anything besides
Okay.
that.
Okay.
If you want me to react on anything.
Wow.
All right.
Wow.
No, that's
See, everything I say with a Brooklyn accent anyway, so it's not going to sound familiar. But so we have your CDs in front of us, and Blaze Sawilla, who's a tremendous artist as well, he's going to be on the show in November. He's going to be right here returning to the show. Tremendous artist. And tell us about each of these CDs that we have right here.
Yeah, I have a really nice collaboration with Blaze since many years now. He's a saxophonist using extended techniques and free improv musician. And I really like playing with somebody who is free in the very sense of it. Sometimes it's a hard time. I've had a hard time to explain what free music or free jazz is.
Well, explain it for the layman.
Yeah, it's sometimes difficult. I feel free when I play Bach too, or when I play a score, because I don't have to think so much about the pitches and the durations.
Right.
So that can be freedom too. So. But the combination with a player who doesn't care about, like composition, like written out music, and I'm a classical musician first of all things. So this is a very nice combination that we had, and we had a lot of collaborations also as a duet. So when we're traveling, he comes over to Germany, we were playing either in a duet or adding up other people from there. And when I come over here, sometimes I have a trio of other people we play with. So it's like a project. It's called Projection Zero. A very Buddhist idea,
And what does that mean? Projection Zero.
If you have zero, it's like nothing, or it's like the circle. I like the circle. And projection, if you think about the circle, it's getting you in this trance-like, meditative kind of state of mind, and you don't have projections, so this is exactly what you shouldn't have when you make this music. So we started to go and just record it, and this is the result.
And I was saying to Jim, when you perform, I'm watching you here off camera, and you are almost in a trance-like state. It's like you suddenly come out of it, and your eyes open, and you look at me, and like you're really almost in a trance-like state. It's interesting.
Yeah, yeah, I really dive into it. I think that's what it's all about: concentration, focusing.
And I heard some blues elements in there as well.
Mm-hmm. Yes. Actually, I don't think when I'm playing like this, but on the other hand, I'm trying to prepare things as well. So I'm trying not to practice it, but be prepared at the same time. It's contradictory, but that's what it is. So I just try to inspire myself. Last night I was just playing around with ideas. Number 5, basically. 5 rhythms, or what can you do with 5? Since you know that I'm familiar with Indian Carnatic rhythm, so I was playing around with a couple of ideas that I was basically practicing, but not in a way that I will present them tomorrow, just to have them handy, like in a reservoir that is back in my mind, and I pull them out whenever they come. So when there is like something that I feel should be like bluesy or jazzy or steady or just texture, whatever, that's the nice thing about solo playing. You can just, try to make it fit. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. And that's what's so fascinating.
Well, when you say sometimes it works and sometimes it doesn't, I also think that depends on the audience, because somebody's going to go, wow, that's incredible. Somebody else is going to go, whoosh, and they're just not going to get it. Yeah. And I've found, to my dismay, that many jazz fans, they love bebop, they love their Charlie Parker, they, Max Roach, Dizzy, of course. And sometimes the free jazz they don't quite get. They don't get it. And just because they don't get it doesn't mean it's not great.
No, but I think the thing is, if they just went along with it, they would see that the roots are the same. We come from bebop, we come from Charlie Parker. And so I studied Charlie Parker solely from the start. The solos were just like my inspiration, not to copy them, but to get the concepts, the ideas, the essence of it, and trying to transcribe it in my own concepts that I was using on the guitar. Speaking of fingerings, for example, or line design, which is not exactly what he did, but just to transcribe it in a way that I had things handy like he was using in his own lines.
What do you think of the critics who don't quite get the free jazz players or the avant-garde players, or however you want to label it? To me, it's very disappointing. That.
Well, you know what? I sometimes I just have to laugh. There's a funny story. A couple of years ago, I was working with this project. It was called Carte Blanche. Yeah, Carte Blanche. And we were using like odd meters, M-bass oriented, like not 4/4, but 17/16 or something, like with these little shifts in it. Really, really tiny little shifts. And one of the critics, he said, he has that feeling the drummer's always a little bit too late or too early.
Yeah.
Come on, man. I mean,
you're a little too tone deaf. Right.
Well, but I don't have to say anything about it.
Right.
If he doesn't feel that it's meant like that, then she or he should just be listening a little more carefully.
I had the opposite experience the other night, and I'm not going to name names, but I sat and saw 3 commercial rock bands, and to me it just wasn't challenging enough. I'm like, okay, they borrowed this from the Stones, they borrowed this from the Dead, they borrowed this from, and there wasn't much showmanship. They just kind of stood there and played, and I was kind of like, I've seen the masters. And sometimes I think the musician has to go that extra yard and challenge themselves. I understand you're on a tour, you're burnt out, you've played 30 dates in 40 days or whatever, but every one of those paying customers is there to hear something special. John the poet, John Winnell, who's a semi-regular on the show, he said, that show made me sad. So I said, it didn't bother me that much, John. It was just a night out. But, when you're at a concert and you're just like, that was okay. You want more than okay. You know, do something adventurous, even if it fails. Take a chance. Take a chance, right?
I think the worst case scenario for me artistically is when there is stagnation, when you don't get further, when you don't develop it. Sometimes, you know, you just don't. Then you have to be patient and just keep working on it. All of a sudden, the door opens again.
Yeah.
I think that's the thing.
There's different levels of blame in a music experience. The fans who only want to hear a noted artist hits,
Yeah.
and then the artist wants to do something new, something different, something challenging, and the audience sits there like, you know, unresponsive because they want to hear, you know, the greatest hits album or whatever the case may be. And so in that case, it's the audience's fault too. You know, it all has to work together, I would think.
I want things to develop. And sometimes I think, you know, it's really hard to develop ideas. When I think about it, maybe in your life you might have 2 or 3 original ideas that you follow. Copying is a great thing, but not copying for the sense or for the sake of copying. It's just more like getting inspired and moving ahead from there.
Sure, of
It's
course.
like having a route that still, you know, goes further and develops. That's what I'm trying to do. So very often I'm asking, well, where are you right now? Is that a new idea, or are you just stuck? It might be a daily thing too, but that's what I do.
I have this theory that some of the greatest artists in any genre, there was like a touch of madness, a Sun Ra, a George Clinton, a James Brown, you know, Prince. You know, his name became a symbol. I mean, these are musical geniuses who created their own languages to a certain extent, and you know, I think. You know, but you talk to Sun Ra and he's like, I'm from Saturn, and you know, he's a little out. I mean, it's a gimmick, but you know, they're geniuses in their own right.
You have to go to outer space sometimes, I guess, to inspire yourself. It just sounds a little strange when you talk to people who stayed on Earth.
Yeah. But what do you think of that theory that sometimes madness and genius collide and it works?
That's what I mean, because you just think of a scientist. They have to invent ideas just the same way and develop and then prove what they have. We don't even have to prove, but we have to go the same way. We have to have these crazy ideas, otherwise we don't develop. So you have to do crazy things at times. And for me personally, when I get stuck, let's say I kept going straight, then I have to tell myself, whoa, why don't you go left? Why don't you go right?
Right.
Or up or down? There are always options, but I just don't see that I'm going straight all the time. So sometimes you have to go off the street and off
Absolutely.
the planet.
Absolutely.
But when you come back, you're oh man, what did you do? And I ask myself, whoa, 30 years back, if I was told, oh, this is you playing 30 years from now, I would never have even thought of the idea of getting to where I am now.
And have you ever been in a situation where you're on stage and you're with a great player, but maybe he's a little too self-indulgent and he goes off on a 27-minute solo, and
Yeah. That happens.
what's that like?
Well, you know, it depends on what kind of setting it is. When it's improvised music or it's when a jazz setting or so, there is always room. You can always stop playing. So that's a good thing. When somebody wants to play, I let him play. Sooner or later, he will be finished.
Yeah.
Or not to say.
But what if
give
it's
up.
later? And,
Yeah.
yeah.
Well, sooner. It's just that's a meditative kind of thing you can
Right.
ask to. Well, I happen to have that, but not very often. But I just don't. When I don't have to say anything, I just shut up. And when I don't have to play anything, I just don't play.
And who are some of the artists of any genre that have influenced you?
Personally, dearly, Carl Berger, for example. He's a dear friend of mine, the Vibes player. It's a very nice story. I've seen him at the age of 14 at the famous music festival, new music festival in South Germany. I was little. And I saw him play with the Woodstock Workshop Orchestra. And all these great players. It was just wonderful. And years later, we became friends and then colleagues. Now it's like this really wonderful relationship where it's not only about music, it's about life, it's about friendship, which the older I get, the more I think is important. When there is a musician that I like, I can do something. When there is like tension or something, it's gonna be tension on stage, very probably too, very likely to. So these things have been taught by Carl, for example. Carl is a very personal influence. Among many others, of course, the teachers that I was working with at the guitar, my professors, of course, too. But later on, also musicians, I mean, street musicians could be a very strong influence, too. Great professors, big names and all this that I've been working with or that I've been studying with, which is a great gift. But I will never forget, it was in 93, actually. It was in 8th Avenue, a Sunday morning on 8th Avenue, 50th Street, right, Midtown Manhattan.
Right.
There was this huge parking lot, not much traffic. There was this young kid playing on buckets, drums.
Oh, yeah.
Black kid. And he was doing these incredible things. Not only the drumming, but since there was a parking lot, there was a reverb. So he would hit the bucket, it would come back.
Yeah.
And had all these kind of, I mean, I was just too young to think about it. It would have taken, would have been my drummer, just like that, right?
Speaking of drummers, I used to see Max Roach and Andrew Cyril do solo drum shows where they would play like 50-minute solo shows, and Max Roach was a little more traditional. Andrew Cyril was, he's playing the floor, the wall, the side of the drum, and they were amazing shows. And just to watch, genius, solo shows, 50 minutes. Yeah. And you mentioned vibes. Why is it that I could count maybe on two hands the number of great vibes players? Maybe because it's such a cumbersome instrument. I mean, you got Lionel Hampton, Roy Ayers, my friend Cody Mundi, who played with Kid Creole and the Coconuts and Dr. Bazard's Savannah Band. Jay Hogarth's still around, great vibes player, jazz player. But not a ton. Roy Ayers is very influential, but not a lot of vibes players that I could think of offhand.
No, but I think Carr, for example, he's a pianist.
Milt Jackson.
Milt Jackson.
Yeah,
oh,
Milt
there are
Jackson.
many others around. But still, they're not very famous.
Right.
It's like the silence. Carl used to be a pianist, but the pianos, when he had to play in clubs, were so bad, so he switched to his own instrument that he could transport. And he's still there. He's still playing on this instrument. It's 60 years old. I don't know, it's almost collapsing, but it has this unique sound, and that's the thing. So that's how people get probably into this instrument too. I just like it. I like it much better than playing with a piano, because it, sometimes when I play with the piano, it can be very tricky. It can get out the other instrument's weakness in a way, because I always liked 80 keys, man, all these chords they can play and voicings. We can't do that, but then we have this bluesy kind of thing by nature of the string, that you can bend them to microtones and all this. We don't have that on a piano. So this is kind of tricky, but vibes, the sound-wise, is so far away from strings. You can do anything at any time, you will hear it. You can play at the same pitch, and you will hear the guitar, you will hear the vibes. You can even play classical guitar, nylon strings, no problem. That's what why I like that instrument so much too.
I just, it's like few and far between when I go to a club and see a vibes player. It's not, I was thinking maybe just it's very cumbersome, to lug that around, and might be a hardship for some people.
Yeah, maybe.
I think a guitar's a little easier.
Well, I could tell you stories about that too, but I don't want to get into this.
Must be a headache on airplanes and stuff, right?
Yeah, you're always schlepping. Musicians are schlepping people, usually, if you're not a singer or flute player. Even those guys might schlep.
So let's say it's a Saturday night in Germany, London, Paris, New York. Who are some artists that you would pay to see as a great artist? Who would you enjoy as a concert experience?
Right now?
Right now.
He has to
they have to be alive.
Yeah,
they're better when they're alive.
That's a good question.
Yeah.
That's a very good question. You know what? I can't really tell you. Because at the moment I wouldn't want to listen to anything. You know why? Because it would distract me. If there is a great flamenco player or something, I would love to listen to that music, but when I hear it, it would get me from my path that I'm right on.
Oh, okay.
So, no, at the moment, I wouldn't really want to listen to anyone.
Interesting.
No, I actually enjoy silence a lot.
Wow.
I really, yeah, that's the basis for all music. That's where you start from, where you go back. And very often, I feel there is too much going on. There's just too much sound. Walk in the streets of New York City. Sometimes it's not that bad, but sometimes it's just just unnecessary. I will never forget. Where was it? On the Bowery. Years ago, it said, "Don't honking the horn forbidden" or something. Prohibited. Unnecessary noise prohibited. That's it.
Yeah.
Unnecessary noise prohibited. I thought, whoa. So what is necessary noise?
Yeah.
That's the question.
Well, in New York, we have signs, no honking. This is a hospital
Exactly.
area, and
Yeah,
you
but
don't want to wake the
Bowery
patient.
was just right in the middle of everything.
Mm.
So I think I really enjoy silence, nothing,
Hmm.
and then start from there, because then a little pitch, a little long note evolving from nothing, out of nothing, can be something. I like that a lot.
So going back 30 years, who are some of the artists that you've seen live that meant the most to you? I remember some of the best nights of my life was seeing Sun Ra, seeing the Art Ensemble of Chicago, Cecil Taylor. So many of these guys are gone now. I love Lester Bowie, who was also with the Art Ensemble of Chicago, but had all his
So much
side
fun.
projects. And
Brass Fantasy.
I saw Lester Bowie's Brass Fantasy with a gospel band one
that
night
makes
jamming,
sense.
and it was
That
unbelievable.
makes sense.
It was Allen Ginsburg was in the audience. It was just a great night, and and I'm just talking now about the free jazz guys. I mean, over the years that I've seen, just so many greats, and most of them are gone now. Most of them are gone.
Well, one of the revelations that I had was in 87, I guess, 86, 87 in the fall. It was a trio, live broadcast at Radio France in Paris, and they would have a trio. It was Derek Bailey on guitar, Joël Leandre on bass, and Ernst Reisiger, the cello player. Those three. And those days I was not much into improvised music. The more it was inspiring when I saw them play. The idea was they wouldn't want to repeat themselves. So they were playing, this is a regular thing, like 40, 45 minutes until things are settling down. So they were playing, and it was just stunning. Standing ovations, because it was just interesting. Of course, they didn't give an anchor or anything, because when they don't want to repeat themselves, so they stopped when they thought now we would start repeating ourselves, so we can't do anything. That was very important for me, because that opened my mind. And about the same time, I saw Bacaluthia with John McLaughlin together.
I've seen McLaughlin. Great.
Yeah, John was playing second. They were doing 2 solo sets, and then they were playing together for the next hour. And that for me was very important, because at the time I was very much in classical, classical music, which was very important for my playing. But I didn't have time to improvise. So I saw these guys play, and I thought, whoa, this is guitar playing. This is playing music, not just reproducing. What doesn't mean that I'm not playing when I'm doing that, but I felt that urge to do that, and that gave me a big boost to move in that direction. Again, I did that before, but I just didn't have time in those years.
In the middle of your set, I heard hints of Wes Montgomery.
Yeah.
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 And who are some of the guitarists that have influenced you?
Wes Montgomery probably was one of them too. Yeah, but John McLaughlin was very important from the start, because I didn't understand what he was doing. I loved his harmony, and that had there was so much mystery in it, some enigmatic touch to it. I had to explore that. And then the rhythmic aspect too, you heard that. I was playing around with Indian rhythms. This was an influence that was very, very, very strong. Guitarists.
Al Di Meola?
Not so much.
Not so much?
Not so much. I was listening to that stuff a lot, but not really. Hard to say. My Mark Stern in a way.
Okay.
In a way, at times, when it came to the rock thing, I liked his playing. Something was very important.
No, it's funny when you interview blues players,
Mm.
blues guitarists. As a fan, you'll say, "I like so and so," but they'll go, "But even though he's commercially successful, I like these other guys much better."
Mm.
Because sometimes as a fan you like somebody because they're a showman, and the purist will say, "No, that's the guy you should be listening to."
Well, I'm listening to many players, not so many guitarists anymore. I'm much more interested. We were talking about Charlie Parker lines. They're just the classic. Not that I want to do the same thing. It's still like propelling what I'm doing. So and those lines, when you play them on a guitar, it's really tricky. It's really tricky, and I like the intricate things. I like to figure out how to do these things, because when you do what you're able to do, you tend to repeat yourself all the time. You don't develop. So when you try to go above that, you have to find out what other people are doing better. Not to listen to your instrument.
Interesting. And what do you have coming up? Any projects?
When I go back to Germany, I will work with a poet. She's doing some poetry, and I will not improvise only. We have some concepts worked out where the words are matching the music, and I'm trying to involve some South Indian rhythm concepts and rhythm manipulations to make that connection between the words and the music, and some solo stuff that is coming up. And a little bit of classic playing too.
Awesome. And please give out any social media or any...
Just go online, key in my name, Karsten Radtke,
and spell it.
Carsten Radtke. You can go to iTunes, you'll see the CDs that Evan was just showing, and you can have a...
This is a very exotic cover. What does this symbolize?
Well, that's the project. We're talking about the Buddhist thing, so this is the Buddhist. He's very busy, obviously, or not busy, I don't know. He's just in an environment that is very, very colorful. A Japanese artist did it. It just happened like the whole sea happened just by itself.
And I've failed miserably at meditation because when my head's too jammed up, I just can't do it. But I've succeeded with Tai Chi. So I guess you have to find what works for you. I find it very hard. I have like a... They call it monkey mind when you meditate, and I have like a 87 instead of a 10 thing to do list. I have like an 87 thing to do list constantly in my head, and meditation I find very difficult.
I know what you're talking about.
Yeah.
Try to not think about the orange elephant or so. It's really hard to.
I'm always thinking, today's Sunday. What do I have to do Monday? And then and Tuesday I have this. And meditation's not easy. People assume you're just sitting there. It's
the opposite. It's really hard to let go of these things. You realize you're not going back to what you were supposed to do, but then let go again. What happens when I'm playing on stage in particular? Concerts, when I play concerts, I'm completely rather out. I feel like a time hole, like a little gap between the time before the concert and afterwards. I know it's been like an hour, but the actual time that I was feeling was just like 20 minutes or so. I know it, but my perception is a different one. It's always like that. That's why I was asking before, how long was it?
Yeah.
It could have been like, I don't know. I just don't know.
Interesting. It could have been 3 hours. It could have been 3 minutes. You were lost in it.
That I knew.
That you know. That you know. So, when you're in New York, you sometimes play with Blaze. And who are some of the other New York artists you play with that you recommend?
I just said Carl Berger is one of my dear friends, and I have this young saxophone player that I was here with last year on Village Radio Connection, Stephen Frieder, that I really like a lot to play with. He's very, very interesting and very open, and a young player. And for me, it's also interesting to have somebody younger. Now I'm playing with the older guys because not only that it's an honor for me, But I also have to look out for other people. And there is Bob Meyer, a wonderful drummer. He was playing with Joe Lovano and used to play with the late John Abercrombie, who
Wow.
passed away last year.
Wow.
Yeah, very sadly. And he's one of my favorite drummers at all. He has this incredible sound, and we have this connection that I can't describe. He's doing things, and I don't even know what he's doing, but all of a sudden it matches anyway. Everybody knows what the other one is doing without really knowing what's going on. It's a very magical thing. So those are the players that I'm currently working with.
And as a great artist, do you ever resent the fact that 1% of music sales are jazz? That, sometimes the very worst music is the most commercially viable. Sometimes what's on the charts is god-awful, and
Yeah. Well, I guess it's always been like that you...
well, I would say in the 1930s and 40s, jazz was more of the commercial music, and for whatever reason, it's shifted nearly 100 years later. And when you read statistics, like jazz is 1% of music sales, and blues is even less than that, I kind of cringe because I love jazz and blues.
Yeah, well, for my own part, speaking for myself, I'm trying to keep my music free from all that as much as possible. So when there is a project that I have to put money in, the money has to be there before the project starts. So I'm free to do on stage whatever I want.
Right.
When I think back the last 30 years, a handful of times that I was not doing what I would like to do on stage. So I try to keep that free. I'm much more concerned about the people who are listening to all that crap. Musicians do that because people are listening to it. Okay, so if those people weren't there, the musicians probably wouldn't do it. So the people are feeding themselves with crap. What do you think what happens?
Well, as an educator, sometimes I cringe when I think what messages are being sent to the youth of America. I happen to love and support hip hop, and we have a rapper coming on in 2-3 weeks, and there's good rap, and there's great hip hop, and there's god awful hip hop like anything else. But when you continually hear about materialism, getting paid, bitches, hoes, what is the message being sent out to the teenagers that are buying this? And I'm kind of concerned about that. But on the other side, I do not believe in censorship, and you're
Absolutely.
so. But I'm kind of like, you're rapping about bitches and hoes, but would you want somebody calling your mother, sister, niece, daughter, whatever, the same? And it's.
Yeah, the thing is, I remember a couple of years ago, I was playing with Blaze when I came over for the New York Library up on, how do you pronounce it, McCombs Bridge?
I'm not sure.
The bridge up there, somewhere in Harlem. It's
Right.
it's the smallest branch of the New York Library.
Okay.
So they said, why don't you play? We did. So there were kids that actually have never heard live music like that.
Right.
So they were used to boom boxes or their devices on phones and all this crap. It was the first time for them to hear a saxophone and a clarinet player. Probably they've heard a guitar, but not in a live situation like a concert. So I was so pleased to see that they not only were interested in the instruments, but also in the playing. How do you do that? How can you move your fingers so fast and all this kind of stuff? That's the joy of it, You just have to keep going and present it to the people. Then you create interest and show that you're not creating interest for yourself, but it's this wonderful meditation that you can do in life that brings you in touch with yourself, with your inner self. That's what I think should happen, and then you realize the more crap you listen to, the more you get away from that. And if you start doing it, even if you just bang or clap your hands or sing, do all these things, it can be so much more deliberating from all these things that probably disturb you in your life.
See, I love R&B, and the great hip hop artist will sample George Clinton, James Brown, Roger Troutman, and Zapp. This is pretty much the DNA of hip hop right there, and others, of course. But but when it goes to the other extreme, where it's just getting paid. What message are you sending out there? It's I feel the same way about radio that you feel about music. Jim Savali's the owner of the station. If he said, I don't want you mixing music and wrestlers and poets, it doesn't make any sense, I would say, well, I don't want to do radio because that's the way I do radio. So you want the freedom to do what you want to do, what works.
Well, we have to invest in that freedom. Speaking of political times nowadays, the same thing. We have to support the things that we got used to. And this is the same thing. It's a freedom that we earn when we just invest in it.
So we're always looking for sponsors, right, Jim? yeah.
Bring in the money.
No, really. It's still a business like anything else. So you can sponsor this show and 30 or so other shows on this station. Tell them how to do that, Jim.
Well, the great thing about being a sponsor is that you're actually supporting local artists, musicians, actors.
Who else is playing Fresh Squeezed Lemonade? Jim Savali.
Magicians. I mean, we got everything. And they're all local people that would not get spotlights like we give them in a group like we give them, in a network. Anyone can stream live, but you're streaming live by yourself. But by being part of a network, Evan's picking up an audience from the show before and vice versa, and it just it works out great. So all you have to do is contact us, villageconnectionatlive.com. You can pick a show. You can contact the host if it's a friend of yours. Help them sponsor their show because it does cost money to sponsor to help support local artists.
And thanks for considering me being local.
Well, you are local because you're a friend of the station.
So, speaking of sponsors, our new sponsor, SWF Wrestling,
Nice.
September 8th. Our buddy Sir Christopher Michaels against the legendary Tony Atlas.
Can't wait for that
Booton
one.
Elks Lodge. It was 10 years ago, but I think we shot something from the wrestler there, if I remember correctly. The Booton Elks Lodge. Anyway, we're going to wrap this up in a few, Costin, but I really appreciate you coming here every summer during your sojourn to New York. And I must ask you, it was interesting in the green room before. You had the proud father, and he points at his kid, the musician, and he goes, "He's the best guitarist ever." So as an educator, I immediately go, isn't that like, setting the bar a little too high? I forget the exact words I used, but it puts pressure on a kid, right? Doesn't it?
Yeah. You know what I told him? That kid should take guitar lessons. I'm sure, even if he's the best guitar player already. But when he's so young, he would develop from that.
What I said during the interview is guys like Sonny Rollins, who was practicing 2 hours a day in his 80s when he was the greatest living saxophone player in the world, probably. So you always want to practice and develop, and no matter what you're doing. I've taught 30 years, and there's certainly things I don't know. There's certainly things I don't know. I've done radio almost 30 years, 27 years. I mean, you could always learn something.
Well, back to the idea of developing, you only do that when you do something. Practicing means repeating things. That's true. But if you want to develop from what you are repeating, then you have to put new things in. Life is continuous. You steadily get new information. You steadily get new experience. And that has an impact on everything I do. What I think is different. What I eat is different. Sometimes it's not. I'm trying to not do the different things because I don't want to get distracted too much. But still, it's developing someplace. I'm playing the same pieces since 30 years. Not that I try to make it no, not at all. Not perfect or anything like that. Just the new experiences outside the music should have some sort of access to the music that I'm playing, so I have to practice. There's no other way. If I played it the same way I did 30 years ago, well, then I recorded it and say goodbye, and then that's it, right? Why do that?
I think another thing when you meet young artists and they were kids, you tell them to listen to other kinds of music. I said, "Have you heard of Bootsy Collins?" And they didn't. Listen. Expand your horizons. One kid was 13. He might not be ready for Sun Ra, but he might be ready for Bootsy.
Can you imagine these kids listening to that for the first time, thinking that they've heard the best of everything, and all of a sudden it's like, whoa. It's got to be an awakening.
Well, what happened to me, since we were talking about jazz, when my parents loved jazz, and they took me to see Mel Torme. I didn't quite get it. I was a kid. I was 12, 13 years old. But when I was 15, 16 years old, suddenly I got it. I'm like, wow. The same thing with Sarah Vaughan. I didn't quite get it when I was a little kid, but when I was a little older, I'm like, this is the most amazing thing I've ever heard, Sarah Vaughan live, and later, as your ears develop, you go further out, and there's Sun Ra, and there's the Art Ensemble, and there's the World Saxophone Quartet, and your ears develop like anything else. Your brain is developing, your ears are developing. You're not just getting taller or whatever.
I was a young kid, and I met Godample, another vibes player who lives here in New York, a German guy. And he said, "You need to have ears big as barn gates." That's what I tried to have, and it's always been like that when I went to the jazz festivals or avant-garde festivals. That I was like, I didn't like it, but sometimes I was fascinated. I was just, I can't say that I like it or I disliked it. It was just like, what was that? Or also, I remember when I came to the States, to New York, the first years, it was sometimes I was listening to like Eugene Chapper, and they would do like this show. They have horror movie trailers, all these screaming women in bathrooms and knives and blood, and they were improvising along with it. It was the craziest thing ever.
Yeah.
It was like, I came back to Germany and said to myself, whoa, that you can do things like that. So is that possible? Is that allowed?
Yeah. Everything's allowed.
But you have to have the idea to do these things, to follow these crazy things, these outer spaces that are inside of you.
I just saw Sun Ra's orchestra. He's been long gone, but Marshall Allen, 92 years old, leading the orchestra, playing Behind Spaces the Place. They showed the movie, and they played the soundtrack live on stage, and it was great. It was great. Marshall Allen's 92. He sounds just as good, if not better. Talk about still developing. 92 years old. And you know what I found that's interesting recently? I was the only white kid on the block. I grew up on R&B, jazz, blues. As I've gotten older, I'm suddenly checking out a lot of the rock bands that I've never listened to, and my friends like, let's go see the Doobie Brothers. Let's go see Steely Dan. Let's go, and I'm appreciating it later in life because I never really listened. Steely Dan, I dabbled in, but I was never really a fan of the Doobie Brothers or any of this. And you see them live, and you go, these are really good musicians. I mean, I may not appreciate it as much as a James Brown or an Al Green or a Marvin Gaye, but your ears can always develop and appreciate new things.
And sometimes it takes years to do that.
Yeah.
It comes back like years when it goes click. In the beginning you think, oh, what's that? And then after a while you realize, oh, that's it.
Yeah. So we're going to wrap this up. In just a few minutes we have Under the Radar with Randy Unger. And Jim, anything you want to plug? Any new shows on the station?
We actually have tons of new shows.
Yeah,
I can't believe it. I can't plug them yet because they're all starting in September.
What's happening with my buddy Tommy Marr?
Tommy Marr will be starting in September as well.
Great.
We have something scheduled. So yeah, be on the lookout. We got tons of shows coming. It's unbelievable.
And I just want to plug. I just started a week ago. I just get these light bulbs. I did I started a page called Evan Ginzburg Support Independent Music. And Costin was one of the first artists.
Yeah.
We have
Appreciate
my pleasure. We have a different independent artist of the day. So I'm eventually going to have this massive list of virtuoso musicians, every possible genre, from hip hop to free jazz. And we want you to check that out on Facebook. Evan Ginzburg's EvanGinzburg apostrophe S. I don't know if there's apostrophe on Facebook, but anyway, Evan Ginzburg's support independent music, and you'll see some great artists that you could check out and support. And my buddy Cooley High, hip hop artist, he just got some music on some major movie soundtracks. Melissa McCarthy's new album, new movie that's coming out. So congrats to Cooley High, great hip hop and R&B and jazz artist. So that should about do it. Thank you so much, Costin. Anything else you want to plug real quick?
I just want to thank you guys, and I hope I'll be back very soon again.
Hope so.
I'm really enjoying being here.
There you go.
Awesome.
And you composed that specifically for this show, I believe. So
well, I just, as I told you, I just tried to inspire me with a couple of ideas, a couple of elements that I composed, but I only pulled 2 of maybe 10.
Okay, well, we appreciate you being here as always, and I want you to know, and Jim will vouch for this, I never have the same artist on 2 weeks later. Oh, you're the only one.
Yep. Well, we got to get him in while he's here.
Yeah, because that's how much we respect you. Because
Thank you so much.
I look at this as a variety show. So but we have such respect for you as an artist that you could come back every week if you wanted to.
I won't do that, but really,
Seriously.
I really appreciate it. Thank you so much.
No, I mean that sincerely. You know that.
Got
Okay. Now about do it. This is the eclectic mix known as the Evan Ginzburg Show, and that background noise you hear is the Randy Unger crew that's coming on in just a moment. So we're going to wrap things up, and Lisa Palizzi will be rescheduled. She had no breaks and no GPS, and she never quite got here. And she's a local artist. We'll have her on in a week or two, no problem.
Cool.
So that'll about do it, folks. Thank you for the forum. Appreciate it.
Raceway bound on the ride to Dover. Guns, colognes, and porn all over the streets were replete with signs of the times, designed by the violence, the money-hungry mind. Said, I'm wondering how this could possibly be. Firefly, follow me right down the street. Free love, soul flow is the prime goal. Emancipate.